Welcome to Megabucks Radio. Conversations with successful entrepreneurs, sharing their tips and strategies for success. Real-world ideas that can put Megabucks in your bank account. Here's your host, Nina Hirschberger.
Welcome to today's show. Your host, Nina Hirschberger. And I have with me today Keith Lee. Keith is a serial entrepreneur. We've known each other for years. We are both mentored by the same person, Dan Kennedy. If you've been on the show many times, I have a lot of Dan Kennedy people on. And the reason I do is it's all about the bottom line, making money, real world stuff that really works. So welcome, Keith, to today's show.
My pleasure. Good talking with you, Nina.
Now, I know you had a business that you sold for a lot of money, and you grew it from, if I recall, it's like $300,000 to $15 million. So tell us what that business was and a little bit of background on you.
Okay, so the business, when I went to work there as a sales rep in 1978. And then we sold clickers and stickers. We sold the handheld price marking guns that you mostly remember if you're our age, back in the grocery stores. And they put the little sticker with the price on. And we sold them into non-foods areas also, which was actually our target. And we sold stickers and clickers, which worked for a guy that was not a manager. He knew he wasn't a manager. And I won't get into why and what else there because it's not terribly relevant. But and so about 3 years later, I became the general manager of the business. Within a year or two, I became president because he didn't have anything to do with any decisions really other than the huge big ones, and made it easier for people to know they were talking with the person who made the decisions. So I became president a year or so later, and about 3 years after that, 4 years after that, we put together a buy-sell deal, and I ended up buying out the company from him in the early 90s, 100% in the early 90s, and he retired and went up to the San Juan Islands to go and bought a sailboat, went sailing. So that's how I got into that business. And again, so we're selling handheld price marking equipment in the early 1980s. Marvelous business, right? Growing business. It was terrible. It was absolutely dying. So my marketing plan.
Well, wait a minute, Keith.
Go ahead.
Keith, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So you bought a dying company. Is that what I'm hearing?
I did. Yeah, but I figured I had a plan. And before I became general manager, I took that plan to the owner, and that's why I became general manager. We had a lot of, it was a dying business. It was going nowhere. I mean, handheld price marking equipment, my God. But we had a lot of non-food retailers. So anywhere from drugstores, pet shops, hardware stores, anybody that would put a price on something was our client, and they loved us. A lot of them, but we only had the one product. So the marketing plan was to provide those kind of retailers with everything they need to run their business. Now we had a minor problem, and that was we had no money to get more inventory to sell to these people. Okay, so that was a minor little problem, and frankly, my earpiece just fell out. Sorry, no. You there still?
I am.
Okay, good. My earpiece fell out, so sorry. Minor little problem. We were going to add all these products, but we had no money to do it. So luckily, I had been an accounting major for 2 years. In college, I didn't end up with accounting. I ended up in marketing. But I had that accounting degree, and I was able to look at the balance sheet and see that he was using cash basis of accounting, and I looked at it and I thought if we move to an accrual basis, we can show some net worth here. And so by doing that, we were able to show some net worth. I was able to go to the bank. I was able to get a small loan. I mean, my gosh, I think we got a $20,000 loan, so we could buy some plastic bags. So these plastic bags were coming out on the market for retailers to use rather than paper bags. Before that, everything was paper bags. Everything was sold by huge distributors who had exclusives with the paper manufacturers, and there was no room in there for anybody like us that people, that retailers just wanted to buy from. They wanted to, but there wasn't anything there. Well, these plastic bags came out on the market, and now anybody with a few $100,000 can start manufacturing plastic bags. So we bought plastic bags in larger quantities, sold them in smaller quantities to our customers. They became more happy with us. And again, when I sold the business, probably sometime in the 2005, 2006 time period, we had more different things for retailers to buy at one location than anyone in the country. So we were their one-stop shop for things that they need to operate their business. We went into packaging first. So we did bags, tags, gift wrap, boxes, bows, ribbons. Then we went into fixturing with their shelving, their showcases, their clothes racks, all of that type of thing. And we finally, actually, in the mid-2005 range again, we actually started selling point-of-sale computer systems to them. So it was where they could go to get everything they needed to run their business. And again, from the time I took it over, we were doing about $300,000 a year, and by mid to before we dropped down after 2008, but before 2008, we were doing $15 million a year.
So going from a person who didn't finish college to being an employee and then an entrepreneur. That can be kind of.
I did finally finish college. I finished it after.
Oh, you did? Okay, because you were in marketing
as a salesperson.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my degree in marketing, but I finished after I started this job. That's a whole nother story. That's funny because I've got a marketing degree also, and I say I didn't learn anything about marketing until I met Dan Kennedy. So let me tell you a little story there. I paid for my son's marketing degree. He also got it, in management and whatever else. But he paid for his marketing degree. Travis owns 3D Mail Results today. For graduation, I gave him Dan Kennedy's magnetic marketing system and said, "Now you can learn some real marketing." Yeah. So that was one of his main graduation presents was Dan Kennedy's magnetic marketing.
So tell me then, how did you find Dan, and was that the thing that kind of turned the corner on really growing your business?
Yeah, I think we would have grown. We would have done fine. It would have been infinitely harder. The marketing plan was still a good plan that was in place before I met Dan, but how to make it work was a Dan Kennedy thing. Well, let's put it to you this way. When I started at 1981 looking to become a distributor of all these things that retailers use, there were probably 20 people in that business in the Pacific Northwest when I decided I was going to really expand and get into that business. There are two left today. One of them is the business I sold, and another one is a competitor that's down in Portland area. And along the way, I bought out 11 competitors that were struggling, so I got them for pennies on the dollar. And that's another whole story. Sometimes I bought a competitor just to get his product line. I mean, I bought my first packaging company to get his product line of packaging so that I could buy packaging better. Okay, I bought a fixture company to get, now we were already doing some of this stuff, but we weren't doing it in the volume that we really needed to buy it the best way that we could. So I ended up buying a fixturing company primarily to get the fixture line, although because the business was going south so fast, I got it for next to nothing, got their customers. Now their customers who were buying fixtures only from them now can buy packaging from me also. Ones that were buying packaging from me can now buy fixturing from me. So again, but the reality is that happened because, and again, we might have stayed in business, but what happened with us was because we were so much more efficient at the marketing and so much better at it, we were the one that stayed around and bought out everybody else. And it's still a very good business today.
Well, I know that you do consulting, you have a mastermind, you have monthly meetings and stuff. So you still live in the world of marketing. But give us tips. What did you do during those years that made such a difference?
Okay, I did everything that Dan Kennedy told me to do. Okay, and everything we learned at Dan, and some of them that he didn't tell me to do, but I was introduced to them through him and associates and whatever. And I'll tell you a little bit about that as we go along here. So, number one, not one significant thing that I did to grow my business came from within my industry. Okay, that's number one. Everybody else was looking to copy each other and was reacting to each other, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing that was significant came from within my industry. In fact, I was a pariah in many cases. But number one, first thing I did, I went to, how I found Dan was Peter Lolevitz. Zig Ziglar is the mainline guy.
Right,
you go to that event, and I'd seen that this marketing guy was going to be on there at the end. I went with my sales manager, and she's like, "Okay, well, this is over. Let's get out of here." Well, and you've heard this story 1,000 times. And I said, "No, I want to listen to this guy." And this guy comes on stage and says, "You can all go out there and sit in your cars all day, to get out of here. Or you might want to sit down and learn something." So, but I'd already wanted to sit down and listen to this guy. What I listened to that really hit home is I was not only was I was an accounting major at one point because I was very good at math, and I was a math major before I was an accounting major, which is why it took so long to get through college. But that gets back to what really interested me about this. Is I love marketing. I love the creativity about marketing, but I also was very good at math. And when he started talking to me about knowing what my return on investment was and not having to guess at whether I was getting a decent return by doing this advertising or that advertising or the other thing or not, when he started talking about that, that's when I paid attention. So I paid attention to Dan. I had my first 3-step letter campaign ready to go in 2 months. It was Christmas time. So you cannot market to retail stores over Christmas. Well, I decided that I'm in Seattle area. I can market to Southeast Alaska, where they're busier than the dickens all summer long with their tourists and whatever, and slow at Christmas time. So I sent out 500 pieces of a 3-step letter that I'd learned from Dan and his stuff. The one letter go one day, and 2 weeks later, the next letter, 2 weeks later, the next letter. I sent that out. I had a 38% response rate. And
when you say response rate, Keith, do you mean purchase rate or call on the phone?
No. Perfect. Great. And you and I don't talk the same language. And all I wanted them to do was to call up, and everything was phone at this point. Call up and ask for our catalog. And when they asked for our catalog, we would send them up. We'd send them samples of a bunch of this type of stuff that they needed to use. So we actually would send them. We asked them, what kind of label gun do you use? Okay, we'll send you 5 rolls and labels for that. What kind of bags do you like to use? Okay, we'll send you a package of 100 bags. But what was cool about this is we were able to send these things. It didn't cost us very much at all, but we were able to find out everything we needed to know about what to sell them down the road. So now all of a sudden they're telling us, well, I use this label gun. I use these kind of bags. Oh yeah, I do use a tagger gun to put my pricing on clothing, and I use all of this type of stuff. And oh yeah, I use those kind of hooks for my slat wall and da 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 da. So and that's all we wanted. And then we had our team trained to follow up on them and go get the orders. Let me tell you, one of my customers, Timberline Ventures, was part of that first 500 mailing that I sent out. That one customer, by the time I left in 2015, had bought over $1 million from us.
Wow. I guess direct mail doesn't work.
That's a lot of bags and tags and gift wrap boxes and ribbon. That original letter, which was I tested it at times. I would send out half this way, half that way, with testing different versions of it. But that same letter we used with just different, a little, as we went, we changed it a bit. We used it for 12 years or longer than that, maybe even, produced well over $30 million worth of business for us.
Well, it reminds me of Robert Cialdini's Psychology of Influence book. You gave them something. So there was a reciprocity feeling in that whole thing, right? When free bags, free tags, free everything showed up.
And they needed this stuff anyhow. So, and they probably, and at this point, they had not heard of us. I mean, the huge majority of them had never heard of us. They needed the product. Seattle was as good a place as any to get it from, up to Southeast Alaska. And so they needed the product, and we were offering to send them the catalog, number one, and then also a bunch of free samples as they went, also, and then down the road, this is another long story. I know we could do these things for days, but I wrote a book called The Happy Customer Handbook. It was based on how to. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't called that then. It was called Out Nordstrom, creating the world's best customer service, because Nordstrom was the retail example of great customer service, and I was selling all to retailers back then. So then, what we did is this 110-page book with 59 ideas of how to create great customer service. That was also thrown into their new customer package. So they get the catalog, they get all these free samples, and then they'd get this book. And on the top of the book, it said, by the way, this is the kind of service you should get from us every time you work with us, every time you deal with us. If you don't get that service, call us right away at 1-800-426-5708 so we can make it right. If you're still not happy, call me. And the letter was the little notepad. It was on a sticky pad on the front of it. Said, call me directly on my direct line and signed by me. And so all of a sudden we're going out there. We don't talk about price. Never talked about price. Never said we were the lowest. Never said we were the highest. Just didn't talk about it. But we come out. We're giving them free stuff. We're giving them a book, and we're now what's the word I'm looking for? Positioning ourselves as the customer service alternative. We are the people we can give you everything you need, and we can give you the best customer service in the industry. So we weren't the price. We weren't the price alternative. And all I can say is it worked pretty darn well. It worked really darn well.
Dan calls that a shock and awe kind of package. I don't know that he was using that terminology back then.
Back then, no.
But go on to the next one. What else did you do that you made such a difference?
Well, one of the things I did when I sold that business in 2015, we were on what was it? What was it called? Yeah, volume 23, issue whatever of our newsletter. And what that meant is that volume 23 was 23 for 23 years when I sold the business, our customers had gotten a newsletter every month from us, free, hard copy newsletter, not via email. Email didn't even exist when we started it, I don't think. But and at times we did go to every other month. But for the most part, every month they'd get a newsletter from us. And when I first started sending out the newsletter, I told them exactly why I want to send this out to you. Here's the reason I'm going to send this out. I'm going to look all over and find the best advice that I can give you from all experts in the industry and on growing your business. And why am I doing that? Because if your business grows, you're going to need more of my stuff. And then the second reason I'm going to send it to you is because when you do need more of my stuff and you get this consistently, you'll know where to go get it. And thirdly, and it was only about a quarter of my newsletter was devoted to specials or new products or things like that, stuff they could actually buy. You know, most people send out something and all it is advertising. Well, ours was filled with things to help them become better retailers with a bit of advertising in it. And I was honest with them. I said, what I want to do is cover the cost of my newsletter with what I'm going to sell you in. And I sent that out for 23 years, really worked on being a person, not a business. So not only I was a person, but I also would highlight some of our people at the business and who they were talking to and all of that type of thing. So we're creating a relationship with them. We're not just a place they buy things from. You've probably talked about it in various issues of this, and I know we're talking about, in your stuff don't always have everything about business. So I had a lot of stuff about my family, and so a lot of it again became the customer service stuff. So now it worked out great. I take my family on vacation, and I come back with all of these ideas about customer service, and I share them with my clients in the newsletter. So now I got a vacation I can totally write off too. But the bottom line was to share personal things with them that they could then use in their business. And not only that, but then, but go ahead. I ramble.
Was it for color? What would you describe what it looked like?
Yeah, it evolved, but it ended up from the huge majority of that being what was it? It was what was it? It was bigger than that. It ended up being 11 by 17 and all sides printed and in color. So it ended up being a 4-page newsletter after a while. It was when I first started, it was like a newspaper size, and you opened it up and da. But it ended up being, and I found that this was the one I could get out every month without fail, is if I didn't make it too big. So it ended up being 4 pages. 11 by 17, folded in the center, and then folded over to be a self-mailer. So that was fairly easy for me to get out, and I knew I could do that every month. Before 2008, we were sending out 20,000 a month.
Oh, dear.
And none of these were paid for. None of those were paid for newsletters. These were all to our customers, on the come, that they're going to end up being great customers and continuing to buy from us. And they did. Oh my God! When I left, that first, it was fun. We had a personality. We ended up doing a super conference event in Seattle at the Tacoma Convention Center. We had 800 of our clients come in for a 3-day event where we had Lee Miltier, Rory Fatt, all of the people I did that with Bill Glazer. Bill was my partner on that thing. And Bill said, if you can put 800 people in a room, I'll get you the best speakers in the country. And I says, well, I guess we'll have to do that then. So we got 800 people in the room for 3 days. My competitors told some of the manufacturers that we dealt with, that we both had as we were customers of these manufacturers. One of my competitors says, what is he going to do? He's going to take them up there and lock them in a room for 3 days? It was huge. And it was a lot of work. And we did it for 2 years, and then I quit because it was just too much stress on me to do it. But it worked. But here's the cool thing is we did end up doing all right on the event itself. We ended up just breaking even, frankly. But we again, going back to Dan Kennedy and measuring things, I love measuring things and knowing what happens. What I found out is that people who came to that event spent 50% more with us in the next 3 years than those who did not.
Mm. Okay, so Keith, let's segue to today. Because I know even though you're semi-retired, you still deal with businesses every month, every week, every day. Not only have you got your hands in a couple other businesses of your own, but you work with local businesses because you have a local marketing meeting and a local mastermind. So tell me a couple stories about how you've been able to make a difference in those businesses.
Oh gosh, I've got the ones that have been the most effective are the ones that, sorry, this is going to sound condescending, but have a brain to start with and understand there's more to business than just opening your doors. There's a guy, Bruce Hudson, well, Bruce got involved in the Kennedy stuff because of me. You were like, oh, I know that name. It's like,
he's a photographer.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends and became a best friend. I knew him before he started coming to our marketing meetings and whatever, but he's become a dear friend since then. And he has all of the credentials in the world to say that he is one of the best photographers in the world. He no longer enters his portraits and stuff into awards because he's won so many of them. He doesn't care about that anymore. But he's won all of these awards. He's part of very small group of people worldwide that get invited to this top level marketing of photographers. And that's all for the quality of his work. But if you ask him today, why are you successful? Why do you not only do your passion of taking pictures for your entire life, but make a very good living at it? What is it? What's the difference that makes that happen? And he will tell you without question, it's the marketing. Okay, and so that comes, and he's been following the Dan Kennedy stuff that we've been doing all along. I don't even have to go out of sight of that family to tell you another one. His son is Josh Hudson. His daughter-in-law is Melissa Hudson. Melissa Hudson, over the last 2 years, she's a realtor. Over the last 2 years, she's averaged 100 transactions a year. That's being a real estate agent. The average agent does 3 to 5 a year. She does 100 a year. And it's all because of the marketing. Now, she's also very good at it. I mean, she's extremely good at showing her clients that I'm going to take care of you. Once they get into her fold, she's extremely good at making sure they understand they're going to get the best service anywhere that possible with her. But to get them into the fold is all the kind of stuff we talked about in our Dan Kennedy marketing. Her husband does that. Josh does that. And he's a member of, he's in our mastermind group. He comes to our monthly meetings. Those are just two of the people that we have there.
Okay, give me specifics. So I like so. I know that they've grown, but what? Give me some ideas of what they've done.
Well, one of the things is Bruce does a newsletter. Now, it's not every month, but it's a newsletter that comes out about twice a year, and it goes to his clients. And he knows, for instance, that my best clients in the future are my clients that I have now. And now he doesn't do very many. He doesn't do 8 by 10 portraits. I mean, I've got a 50 by 60 family portrait on my wall, 50 inches by 60 inches family portrait on my wall. He does those type of things that are thousands of dollars to buy. He does a newsletter. He invites them in for little parties once in a while. He's constantly doing creative marketing with both postcards and letters and all types of that type of thing. He also is up to date on his website. That one of the things we learned from Dan Kennedy is that, if you want to be good at something, you can, if you want to, one of the things is to niche down. So, for instance, he does commercial photography, and he does wedding photography, and he does family portraits, and he does senior, high school senior portraits. He doesn't have one website. He has 5 websites, for instance. So he takes the time to do what needs to be done to market to each one of those groups, and that's what can really make the difference. So that if you're a high school senior and you go to a photographer's website and you see you see family portraits and oh gosh, there's a picture of a Learjet. What's that got to do with my high school senior portraits? Things like the QR tag on the stuff that he sends, so the kids and anybody else can use their camera now and go directly to the website and see things that are directly relatable to them. What was Bruce doing just this last time? Oh, and for instance, I mean, he just redid, this was his commercial photography website, and he just redid it. He's redoing it, in the process of redoing it, putting some new images on it and whatever. And so, actually, we just had a mastermind group yesterday at my house. And Bruce came to that, and he's looking for us to help him with headlines for each area. He's got what he wants, and it's extremely good, but he needs some good headlines to draw them into that rest of the copy and doing that kind of stuff. So he does all of the little things. One of the things we talk about, and I know you've talked about it, you have to, is, most people, they'll ask, dentist gets 100 new patients a month, and they'll say, well, how do you get 100 new patients a month? And whoever is asking them is looking for the one way that he uses to get 100 new patients a month. And he says, well, I do 100 different things to get new patients a month. And that's what he does. He's active in auctions and that type of thing, and teaming up with other people. For instance, what was it he was talking about the other day? He was talking about how using his portraits of, for instance, the sports team to promote the sports team, but then there's also, just little things on the bottom, portraits by Hudson Photography. So all kinds of stuff. What else does he do? Yeah.
Well, Keith, I'm
one
looking
of the
at
things,
the
for
clock.
instance, one of the things Josh does, which is crazy cool with the real estate. He'll take the house, he'll determine who needs to be in that house, and now he'll specifically target for that house on Facebook to that demographic. That's why his wife sells 100 houses a year. Okay, those kind of things. Nobody else. Hardly anybody else does that. He'll take the specific house. Okay, this house needs this kind of person. This is the perfect house for a family, or this is a perfect house for downsizing, and et cetera. And so Josh, for instance, at our meeting yesterday, he brought and he wanted our input on how do I sell to the over 55 people that are looking to downsize now. So you don't look at your market and say, what one thing can I do? But you look at the market and you get involved with people like you, Nina. Seriously, that you can get ideas from, and you can do those 100 things to get one new client a month, not the one thing to get 100 clients a month.
Well, Keith, as always, it is so fun to just listen to the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you have. But I am looking at the clock, and we are out of time. But I think you've got that book offer that you'd like to make, so why don't you share with the listeners?
Yeah, for people that are listening, that book that I talked about for retailers, that morphed later on because it was all about retailers and giving great customer service. That book morphed later on into what's called the Happy Customer Handbook. And if listeners want to get that, super simple. It's free. All I ask is $2.97 for the shipping and handling, and it is a real book. It's not an e-book. And go to thehappycustomerhandbook.com. All one, no spaces. Thehappycustomerhandbook.com.
That's fantastic. It's a great offer. I'm looking forward to ordering that book myself. So, Keith,
Perfect. Thank
you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure talking with you, Nina, and I hope I was able to give something that somebody can use somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure that you did. So until next time, this is Nina Hirschberger saying go out and get to marketing to bring those 100 customers in.
Thank you for listening to Megabucks Radio with Nina Hirschberger. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or to listen to past episodes, visit megabucksradio.com.